Morning.
Heidi.
I need to go and I've just finished a workout, so I'm still in my workout gear, but I'm like, I can do this. Let me just get a jump at just one
Oh,
sec.
good. Hey, Meg.
Hello, good morning.
Morning.
How are you? Oh, hello,
Can you hear
can you
me?
hear us? Yeah, I can hear you
Yeah,
now.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
How you doing?
Oh, good. Yeah, Jackie's with Chris at the grand opening of the Merrickville Metro, the Woolworths,
Oh, right.
or the grand reopening, if you will. Jackie was specifically invited by the store manager. My husband works at Woolies, and Jackie just like loves the Woolies, and he asks them a million questions every time he goes. So he got invited to the grand opening. So he's
Oh,
there right now. I can't wait till he comes home and tells me how it was.
that's so cute. Love that. Oh,
I
There'll be
um,
giveaways, I'm sure, and maybe even some merch for him.
Yeah, well, the store manager Saroj has given Jackie a name tag, which is apparently you're not allowed to do. So Jackie was really upset because he wanted to wear his name badge today, and Chris was like,
oh.
"I don't think you can." So we'll see if he was allowed.
Oh, that's really cute.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, hey, Alex, good morning.
Morning. Hey,
Great
Johanna.
to see
Hey there.
everyone.
Hey, AJ. Hey, D. How are we
Morning.
doing?
Excellent, thank you.
Wonderful.
All right. So let's just get into it. I'll do the admin items in a sec. Megan, today, do you want to read the promises and just reflect on one that stands out to you?
Sure. You want me to read just the numbers or all of it?
All of it. Yeah.
Okay. Life and work transformation promises. If you commit to doing this work, you'll experience changes that guide, support, and strengthen you. Some will arrive quickly, others will unfold slowly, but they will unfold. These promises become possible when you actively use the tools, practices, and frameworks of the life and work transformation. We will hold boundaries with grace and power and follow through. We will no longer be afraid of what people think while still maintaining connection. We will use self energy to navigate uncertainty in our careers instead of fear. We will let go of draining relationships without fear of abandonment. We will create careers that align with our integrity, energy, talents, and values. We will use parts work on self sabotage and procrastination, transforming inner conflict into aligned action. We will feel worthy of success, abundance, and support. We will nurture relationships that matter to us without sacrificing ourselves. We will develop routines and rituals that support our energy, values, and goals. We will embody self leadership, acting from vision, not external validation. We will use nonviolent communication techniques to express our needs in personal and professional settings. Um, let's see. I know it might sound weird, but I think I'm going to go with the first one. As I was reading all of them, I think it could apply to many of them. But this week for me was a difficult week just because everything going on in my personal life. So we had the public holiday, which took a daycare day away from me. So I was only going to have my son's off school today. So I was only going to have one day of work without both of my kids around. So, but I had too much to do. So I was kind of panicking. I was stressing out. How am I going to do this? And being really hard on myself and like kind of going into a spiral of negativity in my own head. Um, and like, see, this is why it's so hard. And this is why I can't, all that talk. And so I kind of pulled myself out of it. And I was like, wait a second, there's a solution. Like I can come up with a different solution. So I'm not feeling and stuck in this place of just spiraling without taking action. So I kind of acknowledged this sucks. It's annoying, but what can I do? And so I got Cece an extra day of daycare on the Wednesday. So then I had 2 days where I don't have children that I could focus and get things done. Yeah. So it was kind of a big thing for me, I think, because I was taking a moment to say, wait, I don't have to shoulder all of this is there a different alternative? I talked to Chris about how he can, because I think that that's the biggest stressor for me when I start thinking about what I can do is if I commit, but then life happens and things come up, like that's what stresses me out. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, it sounds like Megan that it's interesting because today we're going to go into parts work, and it sounds like there's a part that the
Mhm.
spiral comes up, and then there's a lot of narratives that that part is holding on. But it
Yeah.
sounds to me like you almost created a buffer between you and the part. You observed it, and then you were like, okay, I actually don't have to go into this. Like, how do I
Yeah.
look at like what I can do and look at
Yeah.
what the actions that I can take, which is like getting another day of daycare. Like, how do I make this possible? So great. Really
Yeah.
good. Yeah, really great example.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. Okay, so I just wanted to check in on the action items from last week. So looking at, we'll go first, Alex. So it doesn't need to be like a big thing, but just like, did you do it? If you didn't do it, what kind of stopped you? Do you want to recommit to doing it? So, Alex, we will start with you.
Yep, done. Actually reached out to a couple that had been referred to me, and there's a meeting with one of them booked for Monday. And like I also went a step further and had a meeting with a potential, well, a potential with a business coach that I'm going to actually go ahead with to try and set up a short-term rental management business. So I just was like, I'm doing this. What's the point in waiting?
Great. Love
Um,
it.
and some really interesting stuff came up, which I think relates to what we're going to get into today in terms of parts. So, but yeah, that's big tick against this one.
Awesome.
Love it. Love the action. And networking with some people that we know as well that are
Yes,
doing some of this also. So
Yoda
really
says hello.
great.
I literally chatted to him and I've got a bunch of notes here. So that was great. Thank you.
Great. Yeah. Megan, you'll know him, David Oda. Because he like does the Airbnb management in Vegas, which I think is illegal in Vegas, but he's like doing it anyway. I'm like making a lot of money from it. And he was like, I'm about to buy my second property. I don't know if it's legal. Then he was like, it's definitely not legal. And I was like, okay, well,
Okay. Big win
great.
in Vegas.
Yeah.
And also introducing me to organized crime as part of the course. Fantastic.
But you're probably not buying a home in Vegas, so
Oh, good. That was great. It was really good.
Great. Awesome. Megan, what about you? Let's check in on your action items.
Yes, Jackie and I watched the Inside Out movie over 2 sittings, which it was great. I loved it.
Great. Yeah.
He loved it. He's actually going in to talk to the school counselor for this term about some of it. And I think it's super relevant for him and for me. And so it was great. He wants to watch Inside Out 2 now. So we'll get there, I think. And then rewriting the journal responses, I did go back through and I kind of responded to some of your comments, Hannah, but then in the document, I started in a different color, kind of changing things. But I did realize when I got to a certain part, it was going to take more than me just like kind of sitting there. Like I needed to actually go somewhere, get some space and write down and like more journal, I think, with a little bit more time and headspace. So I need to do that bit still.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Okay, cool. And I like even even when we saw in the promises check-in, just the difference in framing already, how it's like, okay, what can't I do versus like, okay, how can I change this, and not going down that negative, like this isn't possible. So love it. Already seeing it happen. Dion, how about you?
I'm going to appear slack. I tried to watch Inside Out and discovered that I don't have a Disney subscription, so that didn't happen. I didn't actually journal on the forest image, but I thought about it a lot, and it's in the back of my head because sunlight comes up as a theme for me quite often, and color, and I think sunlight and color kind of go together, and so I'm just thinking about it in the background.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Love it. Percolating in the background. Good. And Alicia, how did you go with the researching of the course?
I did some research and sort of found out that the base level one is like a mat Pilates, but I haven't landed on which one. So I'd say half. I did start it and kind of ended up a bit down a rabbit hole, so I had to pull myself back up again. So yeah, I want to kind of continue that and see if I can get a little bit more clearer on that over the next week.
Yeah, cool. Perfect. All right, great. We're going to be going over action items at the end of the session again that you guys want to do based on, what is going on in the sessions. We might be checking on this like every other week, the action items depending on time, but again, we really want to be focusing on like actual momentum here in terms of what you can execute. Okay, great. So we're going to go into talking about parts. So this is really the foundation of the course. Every module is going to be viewed at through a parts lens. And when we think about parts, we really start with the 8 C's of self energy. So we've gone over self energy now for the 3rd week. So we're really looking at, when do you experience the 8 C's in your life as a kind of signpost and goalpost that you are feeling like you are well resourced. So we always want to be moving toward things that make us feel more of these 8 C's. Now, when we think about, speaking of sunlight, Dee, when we think about self energy, yeah, self energy is the sun behind the clouds. So self energy is always there, it's always accessible, but sometimes clouds come through. And those clouds can be huge clouds, it can be a thunderstorm, it can be even like a tornado coming down, but ultimately the sun always does shine through, and it's always there and always accessible. So when we think of clouds, we think of those are like similar to parts. So we all have different parts inside of us. And sometimes I do just want to caveat with this theory, sometimes that people grab this theory really quickly. It just totally makes sense for them. They hear it, they're like, okay, I know for me, I am quite a systems thinker. So parts theory and IFS, it is a systems theory because you're looking at how one part interacts with other parts in your system. So for me, when I learned about IFS and when I first heard about it, I was like, that completely makes sense to me. Like my brain just works in that way. Whereas there have been other methods where I'm like, I don't like really get it. So I just want to caveat that if IFS isn't clicking for you, that doesn't mean that there's something wrong. Like some people really get it and gravitate toward it. And then some people are like, I just couldn't really grasp it. So I find as well, if you have a highly logical brain and you have like very strong logic parts, sometimes IFS is a little bit harder to grasp. Different patterns that I've seen with clients is that some of my clients that tend to have more creatively developed parts can kind of visualize different parts and get it quite easily, but it just doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. And it's not like if you don't get this concept or if it doesn't click for you, then this course isn't going to be valuable. So I do just like to caveat that because sometimes people really gravitate toward it and sometimes other people don't. So the theory is that we all have parts inside of us, and these parts can really drastically vary in nature. And at any one time, you can have, there can be multiple parts, and you can even switch from one part to another very quickly. So even we just saw in Megan's share, there were like, I think 2 or 3 parts in that one share. There was one part that was like, okay, I only have 1 day without childcare. How much am I going to do? I can't do that. This is why it doesn't work. This is why the system does. How am I ever going to? And then there was another part, or potentially self energy, that came through and was like, no, let's look at how you can solve this. Let's look at, I don't need to go down that. I can look at how I can get CC another day of daycare. So we can see in that moment that you can switch from one part to another quite quickly. So going into, like I can see parts possible, like even in your homework. So like in your exercises, I'm always looking for, okay, what's one part? And usually, there are parts that, especially when we talk about ideal life, there's usually some resistance parts that are like, that's not possible. You can't do this. You know, here's why it's not possible. You're living in fantasy. Like, I've never been a priority before. Like, I've never chosen this before. And that's fine. Like, parts can be there and they can be present, but we just want to be able to identify that that is a part of me that I'm really used to. So when I think about my parts, these are kind of like the main characters, and I would say a little bit more of the parts that have kind of caused me like struggle and strife throughout my life. So I've got, you know, the little dictator. This is a part that is like, you're not doing enough. You need to push harder. You need to work harder. Um, really like, you know, like nothing is ever enough, kind of like a harsh inner critic part. Then I've got like Little Miss Type A, you know, like highly perfectionistic. Hermione Granger, like wants to, like everything's color coded, everything's highlighted, like wants to be like the perfect student, always doing extra credit, like knows the answer to everything. You know, a bit more shame based this part too, like wants to be high, like the Little Miss Type A, it's like a highly perfectionist part. Then I've got the Sloth Monster. This is the part that isn't as present in my life, but I've had like chronic fatigue, I've had autoimmune issues. Like, this is a part that really just wants to like take me out. I just want to like watch 5 hours of the Hunger Games and like eat peanut butter and chocolate and not talk to anyone and just like sit on the couch and like literally I just want to like become the couch. So, and then I've got the Banshee, you know, this is kind of there are different classifications of parts. So usually like we deal with, there's different parts called managers and firefighters, and we won't deal with managers are pretty much parts like, if you think of like perfectionist parts, inner critic parts, parts that are kind of, they can cause a lot of pain and wreak a lot of havoc, but they're not extremely destructive. When we think about really destructive parts, like any addict parts, like addict parts, if you think about like even gambling, like eating disorder parts, like parts that are out of control. That is what Richard Schwartz, the founder of IFS, calls a firefighter part. So I've got quite a few firefighter parts, especially having like an addiction background and being sober for so many years. But you know, the Banshee is definitely one of like my like teenage addict part. That's just like wild and gonna like destroy my life. So you can see here, these are like quite different characters and they really vary in nature, and we can access any of our parts. Now, basic IFS theory is kind of really looks at what are the parts that are almost troublesome and disruptive to your life, and how do you work with them, understand them, deactivate them, bring more self energy in. And that's really the basis of level 1. In level 2, I do believe that there is a part of IFS that's missing, which is like, how do you call on your positive parts and develop and strengthen more empowered parts? And that is a lot of what we cover in level 2, because a lot of IFS tends to kind of lean toward the more like triggered and challenged versus like, okay, let's look at our highly functional parts and like strengthening them and bringing them up. So there's like parts work can be kind of uncomfortable. And even in sometimes in sessions, someone will say to me, like, I just hate this part of myself. Or like, I have a part that, you know, and this is like, if you think about people say like there's a part of me kind of in everyday language as well. Like it's already, you're already starting to use it without actually identifying what a part is. But you may really dislike something about yourself. Like you may be like, okay, I, you know, hate that I snack too much on chocolate and I can't stop, or I hate that I like spiral every time like this incident comes up, or I really don't like that I get nervous when I'm public speaking. Whatever it is, it could be, you know, a plethora of things. But what we really want to do with parts work is we don't ever want to banish parts or punish parts. We really want to understand them and understand why they're doing what they're doing. So you might want to say like, okay, I hate this part of me. I'm trying to think of an example. Like dating could be a really kind of easy example. Like for me, it was like, right, kind of having really like destructive dating patterns until I had an intervention. And it was like, I hate that I just, am attracted to these guys that like don't treat me well. Like I hate that part of me that like wants to stay in these dynamics. But instead of wanting to, just be like, okay, that part of me is terrible, that part of me sucks, I'm just gonna like put it in the closet and then like work on these other parts of me. In part, which is kind of a little bit more positive psychology focused. In parts work, we want to say, well, why is that part doing that? What happened to that part? What is the belief system? What is that part's purpose? And how can we nurture and care for that part so that it can be a bit more productive and healthy in our life. So we never want to shun parts. We never want to say that they're bad. The book that Dee mentioned last week, Richard Schwartz, he literally named his book about IFS No Bad Parts, to say like the parts of you aren't inherently bad. They are just scarred and hurt in some way. So what we want to do is always turn toward the part rather than away from the part. So it's almost like if you have a child that's like raging and screaming, instead of like punishing them and like banishing them, it's like, okay, why are you doing this? What's going on? How can I talk to you? How can I soothe you? So a lot of your parts also will be childlike teenagers. Sometimes if you have had traumas in your life, like they tend to cluster around those areas. Like I had, a lot of incidents happen in my life when I was like 14, 15, 16. I have a lot of teenage parts. Like not a lot anymore, but I had a lot of teenage parts that were out of control until I learned to work with them. So what's really important and what's kind of at the nature of parts work is that parts are really there to protect you, even if they are doing destructive and maladaptive behaviors. They think that somehow they are protecting you in some way. So say, for example, when we talk about like career transition, and it's like, okay, I'm stuck in a career that I don't like, but I'm like not taking any action. That a part will be there, and a part will be, will be there thinking like, okay, I don't want you to take any action because, you have a stable job, you have stable finances, like there's too much risk there. So again, it's like it's really there for protection. So what we want to do is reassure the part that it's actually safe, that we actually can take risks, that we're actually adults in the situation. So parts are usually, especially like parts that kind of cause a lot of angst, just understanding that they're usually forced into the role for survival in some way. So they think that this is the way to get through life. So therefore, that's why I'm acting and behaving in the way that I am. So for example, I know that when I stopped drinking alcohol, my sloth monster part came like tenfold. I had like chronic fatigue. It was really bad. I like couldn't get off the couch to like go to the grocery store. I had to take off work. And when I really worked on that part, was the part that caused me so much frustration because I couldn't really move. Like I was like so sick. But when I really worked on that part, what I realized about the part is that it actually was really afraid of me drinking again. So it was like, well, I'm just going to knock you out because like you don't have energy to do anything right now. So like all you can do is like watch TV and like eat snacks. Like you can and go to work like half the time. So you don't have energy to function. And it was so frustrating because obviously I had this really full life before and then I was, ill. But if we think about this, it's like from a parts work perspective, obviously there was some health stuff going on, but when I was looking at it from a parts work perspective, when I did a lot of work on that part, I realized that, okay, it was really trying to protect me from something. Like it's a behavior that wasn't working, but the part thought it really was. So when we think about parts as well, we really so a part can be acting in some way that's kind of not helpful to you or to your system, but a part can transform. And this is what we want to do is like understand who the part is and then help it transform into a healthier version. So for me, my little dictator transformed into like a war general that I call Professor Slughorn, that, the Harry Potter character. And when I look at, my little dictator, which was always like pushing me to take on more, to do more, that part was super strong, but also like a highly effective part. Like that part could get a lot of shit done, even though it was, pushed me toward burnout. But when I really worked with that part, now it's kind of more of a strategy part that helps me say, like, okay, this is what you only have so much bandwidth and capacity. You can't take on too much. So, like, it's almost like this part acts like a filtering system. So, we want to use the part's natural talents to then help it be more helpful in your life versus destructive in any way. So, I'm just going to pause it there to see if there are any questions on the topic before we go into some coaching.
I'm just laughing at myself because I'm starting to think about what are my parts. And in my head, I was like, I have to get them perfect so that I can work on them. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, which part is that? Like, yeah, we're going to go into also in the next few weeks really common parts here. And usually people in this program have like kind of four main parts that come up over and over again, which is like the perfectionist, the people pleaser, the inner critic, and then like what I call the loyal soldier, which is like staying in situations too long, even though they're not working out because of loyalty or whatever reasons. But yeah, Meg, like MJ, the perfectionist part, it's alive and well. He or she or they, are probably going to come out. Any other questions or comments before we go into coaching? Does this make sense?
Actually, I do have a question. For the purpose of this, is there a certain kind of number of parts you want us to? Because it feels like it can just grow and all of a sudden it's too overwhelming and not helpful. Like, do you want to focus on like the biggest parts, and is there a certain number that is helpful to get to?
Yeah, I would say for the purpose of this course, and you're right, like parts work can be infinite. But for the purpose of this course, we're trying to really get to know three or four.
Okay.
Like it doesn't need to be a big one, but it's like, okay, what are the three or four main characters that are really kind of holding me back? And you want to think about, this is like we're going through a psychological method in talking about career transition, but you want to start to notice which parts are present when I want to take action or when I don't want to take action or that are stopping me in any way around the career transition. Because all of that will be a part. There'll be a part protecting you in some way, or a part telling you it's not possible, or a part telling you, don't have that conversation. I mean, it was interesting. Like even when Dee was talking about last week, um, a potential part that was like, okay, I need to speak to my therapist. I need to speak to, a friend. I need to like do this. And then we really saw Dee's self energy come in where she was like, wait a second, I can just have this conversation right now. And then there was a lot of action taken. So you can see that there will be parts work popping up, but we really then want to start to bring that compassion and understanding to them to then look at forward momentum. So when we think about parts, also like this is a therapeutic method, but this is coaching, it's not therapy. So if there are like super destructive behaviors that are going on, like that is better suited for like a therapist in IFS. So if it's like, what are called more traditional firefighter parts. So if we think about like any sort of addiction or any sort of like super self-destructive behavior, I mean, that's not really what we like. Those parts may pop up in the course, but um, we want to focus on the parts that are like functional but causing some pain. Yeah, good question.
Thanks. Makes sense.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Alex?
No, I actually felt that because I had some of this I had a situation come up with this week where I was like hesitating around a decision, and I was like, I reckon this is a part, and I sort of read ahead a little bit and like just made some notes down on what my first potential part could be and gave it a name. And but yeah, really just the bit about how will they transform. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I don't know yet. But it's good to think that they can transform into something positive.
Yeah, we're not just like stuck with, these like just like these parts of us. I mean, Alex, you are actually going to be you're up for coaching today if you want to go into it a little bit further, and if you
Mm.
want to talk about if you feel comfortable just telling us a little bit about the situation and then like what part you've identified.
Yep. So, I guess like one of the things that I did ultimately decide to move forward on is like finding a business coach and to help me try and set up this business idea around managing short-term properties in Airbnbs. And I was really hesitating around it because like it's an investment, it's a financial investment, and I was thinking, oh, maybe I'm taking too much on because I'm doing work with Hannah and this and just like kind of yeah, hesitating and feeling like a low confidence. Um, and then I had a call with a business coach. Like they wanted to make a decision there and then. I was like, I just need to take some time. I'm feeling a bit sort of overwhelmed. And I went to football training and I arrived late and the drills had already started. And then I was like, sort of, not punishing myself, but like sort of like struggling to get into it and just feeling like really, really frazzled and staying out of the way, not getting on the ball as I usually would. And then it just sort of occurred to me that I was just like, why am I not just like getting involved in the action here? And as soon as I did, I was just like, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. Like, and I just started like going and like making tackles and getting on the ball and like being really confident and like, and the coach like was like good, Alex, good. And I was like, what part of this is like making me sort of shrink? Shrink myself down, put myself out of the way, make myself like smaller or believe that I'm not like capable of something. And I named it, and I don't know if this is not intended to be like any sort of like gender. It's just because of the alliteration, but shrinking Shirley, shrinking Shirley, like maybe a people pleaser, but someone who uh, for protection, belittles themselves, makes themselves smaller because they don't want to inconvenience others. Or actually, to be honest, where it probably comes from is growing up as a male in Scotland, and there's a bit of tall poppy in there. There's a bit of protection from having played sport in school and being blamed for a game that we lost in football. Like we got hammered like 10-0 at football by this other school, but because I had like had a really unfortunate moment where I was responsible for one goal, it was sort of like everyone else in the team like then like put the focus on me. It was just like, oh yeah, who he fucked up in this game? Like, and I was like, it really like it rocked me. Like hammered my confidence for 2 years because people would just bring it up, like as a way to kind of because they knew it affected me. And so that's a bit of background, and that's kind of where I got to. But then I kind of just like once I acknowledged that the next day after I'd slept on it, I was like, right, I'm actually moving forward with this business thing. Like, fuck it, I'm doing it. Like I can afford it and I'll make it work. And I'm going to make sure that when I play the game on Sunday that I just bring 100% like to football. So there was just a real acknowledgement that that was something kicking in to protect me, but um, I sort of had overridden it. Um, that's where I got to.
Yeah. So like potentially a different part stepped in to take over from shrinking Shirley, or maybe your self energy stepped in.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, it was just a sort of this is not necessary.
Mm,
Not in high school anymore.
yeah.
Cares like no, you're not in that environment. And also like, well, maybe if I did sort of speak openly about my plans, which I don't really intend to outside of this group, to try and set up a business and do a number of challenging things at the same time and exploring things like maybe someone would ridicule and because their own insecurities, but
Mm,
I don't really care. Like I just decided to have the confidence in myself because I'm actually like this is the thing. And maybe there's the potential for this to sound like really arrogant, but it's not. But I'm like highly capable person, more so than most people I come into contact with. And I think I sometimes uh don't like fully lean into that confident competence because like maybe I'm like, this other person's gonna feel threatened, and
Mm.
I know where that comes from. But I bring myself down to their level, as opposed to being like just being me.
And that part that kind of brings down to other people's level, is that shrinking surely? Does it feel similar when you think about shrinking surely when you find yourself doing that, or does it have a different feel to it?
There is like, I mean, out of the examples you shared, like I think it's maybe closely linked to people pleaser,
Hmm.
which is so yeah, yeah, it could be, yeah. So like an example could be like I'm in maybe a meeting with a more senior colleague or a manager here that um has handled the situation or proposing to handle the situation in a way that I like disagree with, or with a customer who says something that's like fundamentally not true, but I'm just sort of like, I'm just gonna like let that one slide, or be like, yeah, sure, as opposed to being like, actually, no, that's incorrect, or this is a bad idea, and here's why. Um, so there's maybe a um sort of like a level of uncomfortability with conflict
Hmm.
that may arise from me being myself, and actually maybe a fear of that person reacting in not a positive way to me just kind of saying what I feel, or leaning into my own competence.
Yeah. And do you think that's shrinking surely, or another part?
Don't know. I don't know. Like I guess like the shrinking Shirley things comes from just like I'm here as myself, and then okay, I'm gonna just like come down to here to that. Shrinking Shirley could be maybe more of a wanting to. I'm not sure if it's like a. I don't know if it's the same part that I'm describing, or if there's two different ones. The shrinking sort of is like, well, it initially came from shying away from like making a big decision, or what I felt was a big
Mhm.
decision. Um, which is maybe like a fear of making like a mistake. Um, and so then I'm not sure if I'm like then confusing that with a different part in some of these other scenarios I'm describing. Like what, Hannah, what are you sort of what's leading you to ask that question? Are you seeing like some different themes come up that are actually related but maybe slightly separate?
Well, parts, sometimes you can think of parts like a garlic clove,
Yeah.
and they often work in clusters. So you might have like a personality of parts that are in a similar cluster. So I think that there's Shrinking Shirley, um, who, but I want to talk to one of the parts a little bit more, but I'm trying to separate, are there multiple parts at once? Because I do think that they're Shrinking Shirley, which does sound like, from what I'm understanding, was really like born and created from what happened when you were a teenager around that game.
Yeah.
And, like Shrinking Shirley, um, it makes sense that might want to shrink you down or take risks. It's interesting that that part then also came out when you were playing soccer as well. Like that was how the physicality of that part.
Yeah.
But then there could be another part that when you're working with colleagues, the more people pleasing part that like you don't really agree, but for whatever reason, also just saying like, yeah, okay, like we'll just do that, and
Yeah. Yeah.
going along with it. And they could be separate parts. I think they are.
I think for the purposes of the scenarios, they are like in terms of if I'm imagining myself. So shrinking Shirley now, okay, so yes, I'm understanding. So shrinking Shirley would be for me like I'm in a situation where maybe like I need to, you know, I'm feeling a lack of confidence around either in maybe in myself. And so I make myself smaller for whatever reason. We can explore that. And then maybe the people pleasing part is like or not people pleasing, the one that's sort of maybe afraid to put themselves out there or have that sort of conflict or that tough conversation or just really say what they think. That could be something else. Need to give that one a bit of a name as well, or identify a characteristic of that part. But yeah, I think they are different. I think they are, and I can
Mm.
call, and it's probably helpful to separate them at this point because it means I can more easily identify when I'm in that scenario. But
Yeah.
so yeah, um, okay, yeah.
Well, can we work with one of them, either the shrinking Shirley or the second part, which feels
Um,
like
yeah. Well, maybe let's maybe work with the second one, like the one that the one that is like maybe afraid of conflict. We could
hmm
call it.
yeah.
Yeah, afraid of conflict or be a good one. Um,
When you think about that part, or even like imagine a scenario where the part just kind of like says nothing and it's like, yeah, okay, like going ahead.
mhm.
Um, do you feel that anywhere in your body?
Um, I guess sort of probably up here, tightness here,
Hmm.
not wanting to
Yeah,
like
yeah.
say the the words. Um, and just like a sort of nervous, overall kind of nervousness,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So tightness.
And yeah, when you think about the part, um, if you could almost imagine it as like a separate being or entity, does a visual come to mind, or even like a color or a shape or an animal? Like, are you getting any type of imagery when you think of the part?
Um, it's um like Mr. Nice Guy.
Hmm.
Like the Mr. Men
Yeah,
characters?
yeah,
Like they're just like the kind of yellow one, the big shining face that's just like Mr. Nice Guy,
yeah,
yeah, like that.
yeah. It's funny. I had a client and we cataloged all of her parts and with those little, like the little
Mr. Men.
miss. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. So Mr. Nice Guy. Yeah. Um, and could you ask Mr. Nice Guy what his first memory is?
Uh, um, oh, all right. I'm just gonna I don't know where this is gonna lead, but like my parents arguing. Um, yeah, well, that's one. But hmm, I mean, I guess I mean, I guess there could be other things like moved I moved school in the last year of primary school before high school, which I think really put me at a disadvantage because all the friends and relationships I'd sort of built up over the years in the first primary school, it was like which you then would maybe carry forward into high school and it's a different environment, but at least you have more familiar people. Like I was kind of like starting from scratch, um, and felt like a real lack of confidence in that environment and sort of kind of I don't know, I didn't really put myself out there as much as I could and sort of just tried to fit in
Hmm.
in the most sort of inoffensive way. Um, um, so those are the kind of a couple of things that come up, but I may need to reflect on that. Like I wouldn't say like yeah, those are the two that just I'm just gonna go with it. Those are the two that came
Mm,
through.
yeah. And How do you feel toward Mr. Nice Guy?
Eh, oh, fuck. Oh, this is I'm not sure. I actually think he's my dad. Like he's part of my dad. Like my
Mm,
dad is a really nice guy. Like such a he's so friendly to everyone, and he's such a lovely man. And I know he also like I've had chats with him. Like he was bullied in school. He I know of like a bit about him, and like has also suffered from confidence issues, probably more competent than he gave himself credit for. And I think could have like, I can remember him like going for an interview for like a big job and then like not getting it and coming home and like kind of being like okay about it. But me sort of thinking like, ah, fuck, like actually okay, I thought, he was going to get it. Um, and sort of, but I guess I think Mr. Nice Guy. I love him, but I also think that he's capable of a lot more, and so
yeah.
I'm almost kind of like a bit. Oh, I don't know if resentful is the right word, but just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure that like that's kind of what's coming to mind.
Like a bit frustrated.
Yeah, yeah, like a bit sort of like what the fuck, just kind of. And probably also like it's a part of me that comes out in terms of like um like I mean I would do stuff like as a kid being like this is best for me, and then like my mum and dad would be like that's really selfish, and selfish was like a really like dirty word in our family. But I actually think that it's like good to be selfish in some
Mm,
not like not be a dick, but like you have to be selfish. I work in a sales organization. There's a lot of people, most successful people here are selfish, and they're doing pretty well. And so there's almost like a sort of a relationship between Mr. Nice Guy comes out because it's like, hey, I'm just going to be like everyone's friend and make progress that way, as opposed to being like, no, I actually know what I want. And some people might say some things about me that they're like, oh, this guy's a dick, but it's really that's them. That's about them.
yeah.
If they're maybe jealous or they wish they could also do that for themselves, or they've got so. Yeah, I'm probably rambling a little bit, but that's there's a resentment, there's a fear that actually it comes out and it stops me from achieving my potential, but there is also like a love because um Mr. Nice Guy is also probably um where I get like my empathy from, which is a
Mm,
superpower of mine. So I don't want to completely diminish them or remove them because there are scenarios that come up all the time at work and in daily life where um you know, like I've had people come to me and say, "Hey, like thanks for the support," and I'm like, "That's them, that's that
mm.
person."
Yeah, that's Mr. Nice Guy. Well, if you could talk to Mr. Nice Guy and kind of because there's a few things going on right now. Like there's another part here that is frustrated and maybe thinks Mr. Nice Guy isn't living up to its full potential. I don't know. You tell me if that's what it's
Yeah.
experiencing. So um, we want to just ask that part to step away for a second so we can just be with Mr. Nice Guy. And what do you think that, when you look at Mr. Nice Guy's behavior, is Mr. Nice Guy happy, like doing what he's doing? Like, does he get frustrated with himself, or does he like doing what he's doing and kind of like keeping the peace and, not disrupting anything? Is
Mm.
that favorable to him?
Um, it let's see. It's something that comes naturally, um, but potentially is um not always necessary. And actually, it probably does. I mean, I think about like, say, a customer, just going to use scenario, customer telling me that they're not renewing a certain product. And I'm like, fuck, that's actually not good for me. But I can also see their point, and yeah, maybe they actually don't need it, but all right, fine. Like, just I'll figure out a different way to go and find this revenue. That's like, whereas maybe someone who doesn't have this part would be like, absolutely not. Like, we're gonna really go to task over this, and we're gonna put in place a lot of, you know, we're not. That's not happening. So actually, there are scenarios where financially it would be, and it would be, and performance-wise at work, where it would be um not beneficial to me. I don't know if I've answered your
Mhm.
question, but
Yeah.
that happens, like that's happening at the moment where I'm just like, oh, wish I'd just maybe been like a bit more of a not a nice guy in that situation and being like, no, like this is not happening. Like
Mm.
I'm gonna really challenge you on this, and it's gonna get uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, what does Mr. Nice Guy need from you to either let another part come through and challenge or even like to change a little bit himself? Like, what reassurance does he need from
Yeah.
adult Alex? Because
Um,
Mr. Nice Guy might be a child. Tell me if I'm wrong here. I don't know how old he seems to you.
yeah, he's probably oh, I don't know actually. Not sure. There could be. He's probably like 15.
Mm, yeah. I mean, I don't know what your quota is, but like it's a lot of responsibility for a 15-year-old to be managing,
Mm,
you know, a quota and to be managing clients and to be like negotiating deals. It's a lot for a 15-year-old to be part of. So, what does he need from you where in these scenarios, like he can either step down or relax or go play soccer or do something that a 15-year-old boy would like to do?
yeah.
What does Mr. Nice Guy need to know that he doesn't have to kind of jump in these moments?
Mm. Um, I think like one thing that came up was like and maybe I'm thinking of this too logically, but like reassurance that uh we don't need this person to like us. They're not our friend. Um, but we'll also deal with them respectfully and in a way that um gets us what we want. But
Hmm.
it's also in their yeah, that probably it's also in their benefit. So like yeah, just kind of like um a reminder that yeah, we this is not like a we're not in high school anymore. We're not going to bump into this person in the break room or history class. They're not going to run off and tell someone that we know that whatever. Um, that would be probably number one, and then number two would be like just like some I don't know if it's like softening language, but ways to communicate things um in the way that I would like myself to be sort of like dealt with if I was a customer, you know. I don't know. That's kind of the two things that come up.
Yeah. And does it like need like it sounds like sometimes our parts, especially if they're younger parts, they actually need like a bit firmer direction, but like firm with care of
Mm,
like, hey, it's actually not your job to be negotiating these contracts. It's my job as the adult here. You can go play. You don't need to take part. So I'm wondering if it just needs reassurance from you that like it actually doesn't need to step in here. Like it
yeah.
might think, especially like if it kind of if some of its first memories are from your parents fighting, it might think that it needs to like come in and just make sure there's no conflict here.
Yeah.
So the reassurance that actually you don't really need to do that right now. Like it's good. I'm good. You're a 15-year-old. I'm the adult. Like would that when I say that, how does Mr. Nice Guy react?
Yeah. That that makes That makes sense. Um, yeah, it's sort of like probably, yeah, probably also just like sort of uh a reassurance and a reminder that yeah, this situation isn't your mum and dad arguing and about to like break up and separate and blow the whole family up for 2 years. This is just going to be someone maybe not renewing a recruiter seat. That's it.
Yeah.
Relax, relax. It's fine. Like,
Yeah.
and yeah, go and like jump over there. Like, this is just going to be two adults chatting, and it's fine. Like, there's precedents for this where you go through a tense moment and then you get what you want and the customer's happy.
Yeah.
And then there's precedent where it doesn't, and that's okay. You get on with your life anyway, and you go and find it elsewhere. So probably that. Yeah, like
Mm.
not that serious. Relax.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Are you and Mr. Nice Guy, are you guys okay for me to open it up to
Yeah.
the group for commentary? Okay, perfect. Well,
Yeah. Yes,
thank
we
you.
are.
But just, as a reminder here, like no advice giving, no telling what either Alex or his part should do. This is just like, do you have a similar part, what you observed? If you want to ask a follow-up question, um, did you experience something in yourself that was quite similar? So I'm just going to let anyone unmute.
I'll go, Hannah. It feels like at the end there, Alex, you really relieved a lot of pressure. So, like, it was almost like, yeah, you could just feel that you relieve this pressure by letting go relax. Like, the adults are going to kind of take care of this.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel that too. Like, when I get myself too worked up, it's like, wait a second, let's come back to reality. This is not that big of a deal. We can figure it out. It's like that. Yeah. So you could see that you just had relief there at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. Just yeah, thank you. Just good to get to that point of yeah, and I've had situations like this in the last few weeks where I'm just like, hey, like you're overthinking this. It's actually not that serious. Like it's all good. You're not
Mm.
gonna lose your job. Or if you did, you'll actually probably go and get a different one. So yeah, just like actually feeling a real sort of like again, like you are competent, you're in control. Like whatever happens, actually just trust yourself. And
Mm.
anyway, yeah, MG, you kind of hit the nail on the head.
Alex, like firstly, thank you for sharing. I can empathize and, maybe at a different time we can have a side conversation, but there were so many synergies in what you said to my upbringing.
Uh,
Um, and it sounds like maybe the Scottish upbringing and the Aussie upbringing, not so dissimilar, if I'm honest. A lot of the things that you spoke about. Um, One of the things that I just wanted to maybe like observe is that, and probably off the back of what MJ said, is that towards the end you kind of had this relief moment or this lighter moment. And given that we are like we're only 3 weeks into the course, it sounds like you've already started doing some of this kind of reflection work and things like that. And so really just an observation to say, am I like, yeah, I felt that just as you were sort of talking about it, because this is literally us just talking about it now, but you already seem to be like, hey, you've obviously done some work before and you were thinking about it, but yeah, but I also just wanted to say, yeah, I really empathize with your story.
Thank you. Thanks, Leash. Yeah, no, there's definitely similarities between like what I think and I can only speak from the male perspective, but what maybe young males would go through here in terms of like a more kind of macho masculine society, where you base your a lot, or at least I did base a lot of your self-worth at a young age around your athletic ability, and when that like that's a real like prestige thing in school, that I took pride in, and then to like yeah, it really affected me. But and so there's definitely very much like some similarities there. But yeah, like I did come into this program having done like a little bit of reflection work with some other coaches, and so um, what's this is now like the next progression of that,
Mm.
and the transforming of these, identifying them, giving them a name, and then transforming them into something positive is so
Mm.
super excited about that.
And Alicia, both you and Megan kind of said this, but in IFS the term is called unburdening.
Ah.
So we have a part that's burdened with, and especially when our parts are young, they're burdened with a lot of responsibility. We've got a 15-year-old that thinks it's responsible for managing situations, that it can't possibly manage because it's adults in the room. And so what we're trying to do is like release the part of its burden, especially if the part's young, because that part will then be showing up in meetings trying to negotiate a $200,000 deal or whatever, or maybe a $10,000 deal. It doesn't matter when it actually is a 15-year-old and it's not really responsible. So then, these parts of us come out. So what we really want to understand is what responsibility and burden is the part carrying? How can we relieve it so that it can then be a child, or even like change into something like what Alex said, like this part is highly empathetic. I don't want to leave it. It can come out when a colleague is suffering or when a client is suffering or in group coaching. Like it can come out there when it's appropriate. However, it's not appropriate for this part to think it's responsible for a negotiation.
It's kind of clicking for me. I think, to be honest, when I read the document about parts and it was talking about the age, I was like, oh, this feels a bit woo woo.
Yeah.
But it's actually kind of clicking to me now, because it is just such that mentality, and you really do transport yourself back to that time. And it does feel like there's no way out, in a sense. So that's clicking for me now, just through
Yeah.
Alex sharing what that was for you. So that's actually helpful.
Yeah. And Megan, you'll start to see in your children that
Okay.
they're already
Like,
developing. They're already developing parts.
yeah.
Like you wrote in your homework about Jack, like not wanting, like Jack isn't very sporty and Jack is like a Swiftie, and, like Jack is like, some parts are already developing there at a young age. So, but that's just life. Like that, it's just our responses to what happens to us. There can be no real protection from it.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah. So, yeah, it does seem a little woo woo and a little bullshit until you start working with them. And then you're like, oh my God, that's a 7-year-old like showing up here. Like, wow, that 15-year-old should not be in this conversation right now. And you can see, because people's face will change.
Yeah.
Like they'll start to switch and you're like, whoa, like what just happened here? And it's a different part coming through. Yeah, it's very interesting. But Alex, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. There's a homework or a journal exercise this week. I will see you guys all next week. And yeah, Alex, thank you and thank Mr. Nice Guy as well for being here too.
Yeah.
And Shrinking Shirley.
And Shrinking Shirley, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got the whole gang.
Yeah, don't forget about her.
No.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah, thanks, Hannah. Thanks, MJ. MJ, I'll chat to you in like maybe 10 minutes, give you a call.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, guys.